If you're stuck at 20% body fat, it's because you're falling into one of the 5 traps that we're going to talk about today. But the good news is I've helped hundreds of guys break out of this and finally drop the belly fat that's been holding them back for years. And I can say with a lot of confidence that once you know what the problem is, the solution is always simple. So if that sounds like you, full screen the video and lock in. The first of the 5 traps is where you're following a diet, not a deficit. A diet is any form of eating that is restrictive. So it could be anything from keto, carnivore, vegan, intermittent fasting, paleo, Mediterranean, Atkins, you name it, the list goes on. But a diet is either telling you when to eat, what to eat, or how to eat, or sometimes all 3. But here's the problem. None of them focus on the total amount you should be eating, which is literally the most important thing. Now, I want to be crystal clear. I'm not saying that these diets can't work or won't work for you, but they are all methods of creating a calorie deficit. The problem is they force you to buy into a belief system that certain foods are either good or bad, and that you can have as much of the good stuff as you want, but you can't have any of the bad stuff. And if you do, you're a failure. But what these diets really are elaborate marketing schemes. And pretty much every single one of them comes with 3 problems. Number 1 is that some of the food that they market as healthy is actually very calorie dense. Take avocados, for example. I'm not saying avocados aren't healthy, but most people don't realize that a single avocado has the same number of calories in it as a chocolate bar. Now, of course, the nutrient value of an avocado is much higher than that of a chocolate bar. But when it comes to fat loss, the number 1 factor of determining your success or failure is your ability to create a calorie deficit. So if you've been psyoped into believing that you can eat as many avocados as you want and that they are in fact healthy and good for you and fat burning, all this terminology and language that these diets use, the chances are you're going to overconsume them. And if you do that, you're not going to create a calorie deficit or lose any body fat. Some of these diets even actively promote drinking alcohol, which is mind-blowing. So that's problem number 1. Problem number 2 is that when you're on a diet, all you do is think about the food that you've been told that you can't eat. Why? Because we always want what we can't have. It's a little bit like if I sit here and tell you to think of absolutely anything except a purple elephant. Now, all you're thinking about is a purple elephant. And then number 3 is that some of these diets create eating disorders, not just in women, but in men as well. I've seen so many men who are afraid of eating carbs or terrified of eating after 6 p.m. That's not health, that's food prison. And what this tends to lead to is you using food as a reward system. You find yourself restricting, trying really hard, being disciplined during the week, only to undo it all and binge at the weekend. And not only is that approach unsustainable, but more importantly, it's unhealthy. Another problem with diets that I've literally just thought of is the mental load of the rigid rules. So what I mean by that is that when you're on one of these diets, you're constantly consciously thinking about all the rules that you're meant to follow. But when food becomes like a religion, it's far less likely that you're going to stick to all of those rules when you're having a stressful week. And then you end up with a group of people who walk around saying that they've tried everything. But what they've really done is tried 10 diets without understanding why any of them worked or didn't work for them. Diet hopping is just procrastination in disguise. You're switching strategies rather than mastering one. But that's all it takes, mastering the one principle of understanding the calorie deficit. So what you want to do instead is follow 3 guiding principles. First, you want to calculate your calorie deficit, which is unique to you. And if you don't know how to do that, I'll leave a link to my free calculator in the description underneath this video. It only takes 30 seconds, you'll get your results immediately, and it's free. But you don't want to stop there because trying to hit the same number of calories every single day will just end up feeling like another diet. So then you want to multiply that number by 7. Now what you're looking at is a weekly calorie budget. This means that you can have low calorie days and high calorie days based around stress, workouts, weekends, and social occasions. And it gives you a lot more flexibility and freedom. Second, you want to prioritize PFW at every meal: protein, fiber, and water. All 3 are nutrient dense. They fill you up. They reduce cravings for sweet food. They boost your metabolism and they improve your gut health. And all 5 of those add up to making fat loss a heck of a lot easier and feel more automatic. And then last but not least, just as important as the first 2, you want to follow the 80-20 rule, where you're eating 80% of your food from single ingredient, whole, nutrient dense food and 20% from the snacks and the treats that you love and look forward to, because it's that 20% that's going to make sustaining this 80% a heck of a lot easier. And being 80% right all of the time is a heck of a lot better than being 100% right 2 days a week. You have to remember that 95% of diets fail not because they don't work, but because people can't stick to them. Adherence is the number one factor that determines whether a diet is going to succeed or fail. I actively encourage my clients to eat chocolate or bread or whatever else keeps them sane, because we all need advice. So that's number one. You want to follow a deficit and not a diet. Number two is that you do not want to be starving yourself. You've probably been told that if you want to lose fat, all you have to do is eat less and move more. But the problem is that as men, we like to focus on speed. Our brain wants to get from point A to point B as fast as possible. And as a result, a lot of us are almost programmed, wired to take this all or nothing approach. But if you do that, you end up falling into the diet trap, which is what we talked about in number one. You can lose a lot of weight very quickly in the first couple of weeks, but then things start to slow down, eventually plateau, which makes you question whether you're doing everything right or not. You crash, you burn, you fail, and you give up. So when I'm talking to my clients about this, I adjust the phrasing a little bit. Rather than saying eat less and move more, I say eat smart and move more. Because starving yourself is like trying to drive without any petrol in the tank. You won't get there any faster, you'll just break down. Yes, of course, we want to eat less junk food and empty calories, but we don't want to starve ourselves. Because when you do that, you tend to end up in this horrible behavioral loop. You eat less, you have no energy, you move less, you stop seeing progress, you think it's not working, you eat even less, and you burn out. But the right food will fuel you, and you need fuel to move, and you need to move to burn more calories and build muscle. And that's important because the goal here isn't to lose weight, it's to burn body fat. If you just focus on losing weight, you're going to end up with that horrible skinny fat look. The goal is to get that lean, confident, aesthetic physique. And that's why your energy levels are a better indicator of fat loss than your hunger. Because if you feel dead by 2 p.m., you've gone too far. Plus, undereating tanks your testosterone, your mood, and your focus. So if you've been guilty of this, don't be afraid to raise your calories for a week or so. You might put on a pound or two, but just remember that there's 3,500 calories in 1 pound of fat. That means you would need to eat in a 3,500 calorie surplus. That's 3,500 calories above your maintenance level just to put on 1 pound of fat. And even if you put on 1 pound of fat, it's going to galvanize you. It's going to give you the momentum. It's going to give you the focus. It's going to give you that testosterone boost to be able to get up and move and burn the next 5, 10, 15, 20, 50 pounds of fat and actually achieve your goals. So that's number two. You do not want to starve yourself. The third most common trap that I see a lot of guys falling into is around hidden calories. Put it this way, most guys who are trying to lose weight and burn body fat already know that they should be eating less McDonald's and pizza. But the odd pizza here or there isn't going to stop you from losing body fat in the long run. It's what you don't know that's going to keep you stuck. And often that is hidden calories in things that we've been told are healthy. Cooking with oils or butter, sauces that we put on our food, grazing on snacks like nuts, not measuring serving sizes and eating 4 times the amount we think we are. Liquid calories from fruit juices, alcohol, coffees, and even your healthy smoothie. This is exactly the point I'm making though. Most people intuitively know that there's a lot of calories in pizza, but not that many people realize just how many calories are in their morning smoothie. Just to give you a couple more examples, 1 tablespoon of olive oil has 120 calories in it, but most people pour 4. We've been socially conditioned to mean that healthy equals low calorie. But if you have a salad with croutons and cheese and dressing, it can easily add up to over 1,000 calories. So you could be doing everything right, but if there's hidden calories in things that you've been told are healthy, you could easily be adding 500 to 1,000 calories every single day. And the worst part is, you don't even realize it. And when it comes to hidden calories, sometimes it's not what, but when. Let's be honest, weekends are usually the calorie culprit. We've all been there, right? You eat clean for 6 days in the week and then Saturday afternoon rolls around, you have 6 drinks and a bowl of nachos and wipe out your entire deficit in 2 hours. I'm not saying it's fair. I'm not saying you need to cut all these foods out, but you just have to be aware of it. This is where accurate tracking comes into play. I know it's boring, but if you commit to doing it properly for the next few weeks, not only will you build a lifelong healthy habit, but you'll figure out where you've been going wrong and what's been causing you to stay stuck very quickly. And if I'm being brutally honest with you, most people who are trying about 80% of the time, which sounds great, but if there was a ship that was 20 degrees off course, it might set sail for New York from London but end up in Argentina. And when it comes to tracking, you want to track before you eat and not after you eat, because tracking after is like budgeting once the money's gone. So that's number 3. Watch out for those hidden calories. For number 4, we're switching focus and looking at the other side of the energy balance equation. So rather than looking at the number of calories that you're eating, we're looking at the number of calories that you're burning. And most people are massively overestimating this, but it's not their fault. They spend a lot of money on these heavily marketed fitness trackers without realizing that they're insanely inaccurate. Your watch might tell you that you've burned 800 calories from that spin class, when in reality it's closer to 300. A comprehensive meta-analysis study has just been concluded. It reviewed 45 studies and found that fitness trackers are on average only 60% accurate. Not just on metrics like heart rate and calorie burn, but even on things like step count. In fact, when they broke the study down, the energy expenditure estimates lagged at approximately 57% accuracy. So you could spend $1,000 on one of these fitness wearables and it's only just over 50% accurate. And the problem is this leads to people eating more than they should, putting them in a calorie surplus, so they end up gaining body fat. But to be honest with you, regardless of the accuracy of these fitness trackers, the bigger problem that I have with them is that they make people feel like they have to earn their food. And it leads people down a very slippery slope of yo-yo diets and weekend binges. If you're thinking like that, you're in a toxic relationship with your food. Actually, while we're on the subject, another one that's tied to this is the fallacy that you need to be doing cardio to burn fat. But I've actually done an experiment on this myself, and I'll put the results on the screen right now so you can see for yourself. The calorie burn between walking and running is negligible. In fact, NEAT, which stands for non-exercise activity thermogenesis, so think walking, fidgeting, taking the stairs instead of the lift, carrying the groceries, burns more calories than exercise. So you absolutely want to move more, but as long as you're already following some form of structured workout program, which I assume you are if you're watching a video like this, it doesn't mean that you need to train more, and you certainly don't need to be doing any high intensity cardio. Running doesn't build muscle, it breaks it down. In fact, you can think of running as a series of consecutive jumps, because that's what it is. And the more muscle you have, the more fat you'll burn at rest. You literally become a higher calorie burning machine. So the simple advice here is to walk more and lift regularly. Do the basics consistently and don't obsess over the exact number of calories you're burning. And then last but not least, number 5, probably the most common trap that I see guys who are stuck at 20% body fat fall into, and that's quitting too soon. Listen, it took a lot longer than 4 weeks for you to get out of shape, so it would be unrealistic of you to expect to be able to get back into shape in such a short time frame. Most men overestimate what they can achieve in weeks and underestimate what they can achieve in months. I'll put a graph on the screen right now that shows what a normal weight loss journey looks like. There's peaks and there's troughs. Results follow action, but not immediately. There's always going to be a lag time. It would be like you planting seeds and then digging them up to see if they're growing. So rather than obsessively jumping on your scales every single day to see if you finally shed that half a pound, you want to be measuring your progress in lots of different ways. And this is exactly what I do with my clients. Yes, of course, we're looking at the weight on their scales, but we're also looking at their energy levels, how stressed they feel, progress photos, whether their clothes are fitting better, and even if other people have noticed whether they've lost weight or not. The other thing that I would say on this, because I literally said it to a client of mine this morning, is that you never want to be too focused on the outcome. Pretty much every single guy who joins my program has a goal weight in mind or a body fat percentage that they want to reach, and that's great. But when you're obsessively focused on the outcome, it always feels like work. So what we want to do instead is focus on the process, because if you do it that way round, it's far more likely to feel like fun. And if it feels like fun, it's going to feel easier, because I can promise you, as someone who has been through this myself, that goal, that thing that you think is going to make you happy and solve all of your problems, won't. Your brain will be happy for about 2 minutes, and then it will think, what's next? I think as men, what makes us happy is knowing that we're on the right path, knowing that we're making progress. I mean, a great example of this is me with this YouTube channel. Most of you won't realize this, but when I first started it way back in January of 2024, I committed to posting every single day for 100 days. I actually ended up doing 120 days in a row, but I was never measuring my success based on the subscriber number at the end of that, because I recognized this as a decade-long project. Sure, it was nice when I saw the subscriber number tick up by 1 or 2 a week, because literally that's how slow the progress was. But I could see in myself that I was improving, and I was looking at lots of different metrics. If I was solely focused on that subscriber number, I would have given up, because after 4 months of posting every single day, I think it was about 150, but I was looking at lots of different metrics. So I was enjoying the process. I was enjoying the fact that I was getting better at it. But because I took that approach, I endured. And then there was one week a few months ago where I went from 10,000 subscribers to 20,000. Bear in mind that it took me a year to get to 2,000. Because you see, progress is like compound interest. Nothing happens for a very long time, and then suddenly everything happens all at once. So rather than focusing on losing 10 pounds in 5 weeks or getting to 15% body fat in the next 12 weeks, focus on losing 1 or 2 pounds a week. Because you don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your habits. And that's why you need to stay the course. Your actions change, then you get the results, and then finally your identity catches up. So now you know what's been keeping you stuck at 20%. Check this video out next, and in just 10 minutes, I'll tell you everything you need to know to get under 15% and finally see your abs. Enjoy.